account? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Just wanted to let you know I didn't mean to
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
Plugged in. I know you've got all this time in, but we're gonna credit that account. You turn it on? I use 2468 on mine.
Yeah, he said that, but we didn't say.
No. It should set up automatically. Mine does. I'm not even gonna use mine because I'm down to 27% power.
It's not even here because Pete here. David's.
Everything all right?
Yeah, exactly.
I feel for you guys. I tell you, it's going to go better on our side of Fisher where I'm at, and so everybody's really fired up about what we've done. Hey, how are you? Oh, good to see you. You know, you hit the efficiency standard. Oh yeah. Right? I've got plenty of sunburns over here, and I'm sure I'll get some blowback. Let's do this.
What is today, 18th? We're going to go ahead and call the March 18th City Council meeting to order. If everyone would please rise and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance. All right. So announcements, the Actian Club?
Action.
Action, sorry. Thank you. Are you going to do this today?
Sure. I'd like to have the Action Club come up and introduce themselves. It is a new service club that the Kiwanis has that got started here in Fishers and Geist. It's a newly formed club here in the area to help provide services and do good deeds here in our community. And so we've got the chapter advisor, Dana Potschmitz, and some of the officers. So they're going to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they do.
Just right here. Hi, we are here from the Action Club tonight. We wanted to let you guys know that we're a new group in the community that is working to kind of bridge the gap between the community and people with disabilities. So we're working through service projects with various members of the community, both businesses and individuals. And we have an upcoming meeting in April, April 3rd from 5:30 to 6:30, and we'd like to invite anybody that would like to come. And then I wanted to give the officers some time to introduce themselves. They've been working really hard to get this club up and going.
Hello, my name is Caroline Dunklow, and I am the Vice President here at the Action Club. And I'm really honored to be the Vice President because I want to be with people, have fun with them, and teach the people who have disabilities how to honor themselves if they have disabilities. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you want to say hello?
Hello,
You can tell them who you are.
I'm James Dudley,
And what are you in Action Club?
Action Club.
You're the
I'm the president.
president. James has been doing a great job.
A great job.
You want to tell them?
Thank you, James.
Hello, this is Paul Stephen Pallets. I'm the treasurer officer of the Creators Action Club. I try to help with the money with visibilities with everyone.
Thank you.
All right. So if you guys have any questions, we'll be here tonight to answer any questions you might have about Action Club.
Can you just share a little bit about what you do and the purpose of it, and then what you've been doing? This past week was Action Club Week, and so tell us a little bit about some of the things that you guys have been working on since the club got inducted a month ago, last month.
Yeah, so it's been a crazy 2009. We've been working really hard with the Kiwanis Club. Last week was Action Club Awareness Week. So we've just been raising awareness about Action Club. So good thing that we're here, right? And then we have been working with the Kiwanis on their Easter egg hunt that's coming up in April. So working with them to kind of put together Easter eggs. We're also working with the Fishers Police Department for upcoming projects in the summer. So just really trying to build connections with the community. And our main goal is to just spread awareness about disabilities and how we can be a part of the community. Same thing with March Disability Awareness Month, bridging that gap between our community and people with disabilities.
When is your next meeting, if anyone's interested in attending or wants information on how to join?
So the next meeting is April 3rd at Geist Promise Road Church. And we, if you have any questions, you can contact me, Dana Poshman. So if you would like any more information, definitely reach out to Cecilia or myself. You can find me. I'll be here all evening.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is proclamations. Selena, if you want to tell us about the Janus 40th anniversary.
Janus is a wonderful organization that has served those with, I'm assuming some of them maybe from the Action Club attend Janus, and I know Janus has a Action Club that participates out there of helping those with disabilities. My daughter attends there, and glad to present this proclamation. Whereas April 2019 has been designated as Janus Developmental Services Month to celebrate and to recognize the 40th anniversary of Janus providing individuals with disabilities the opportunity to participate and contribute within the community, and whereas the staff members and the board members of Janus Developmental Services strive to make community employers aware of the capabilities of people with disabilities to be engaged in competitive work in inclusive settings, as disabilities is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the right of individuals with disabilities to contribute to society and experience full in the economic, political, social, cultural, and educational mainstream of American society. And whereas the staff members and board members of Janus Developmental Services continue to work tirelessly each day to provide the necessary programs, services, and supports to enable individuals with disabilities to attain the crucial life skills needed to live meaningfully, productive, and self-fulfilled lives. And whereas the staff and board members of Janus Developmental Services Incorporated provide individuals with disabilities the opportunity to support and to make informed choices and decisions, live in communities where such individuals can exercise their full rights and responsibilities as citizens, contribute to their families and community, have interdependent friendships and relationships with others, and achieve full inclusion in society. Therefore, Mayor Scott Fadness, the City of Fishers, hereby claims April 2019 as Janus Developmental Services Month.
Thank you, Selena.
Welcome.
Next up is the March Disability Awareness Month video. Do you want to introduce this, Cecilia? I'm sorry, pictures.
Come on up. Good to see you. How are you? Congratulations on 40 years of service.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
We're right here.
Okay. I was gonna say, where do you want us?
There we go.
Okay. Here.
I think.
Great.
Is it
Congratulations.
very much?
Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Janice, for everything that you do, because you truly are a real community partner for our community here in Hamilton County and in Fishers. And as Selena was talking, March is Disability.
The month of March has been
I want to show you this video, but one of the things I want to just share is we have 2 events coming up for March Disability Awareness Month. This Saturday, March 23rd, at Fishers High School between 2 and 5 p.m. will be the Adaptive Sports Showcase. We're going to highlight various organizations and athletic abilities of people with disabilities, from blind baseball to adaptive basketball, soccer. We have gymnastics, we have Pacemates. Zeke from the soccer team is coming, and so we have a lot of giveaways and a lot of mascots from both high schools and different athletes there. So we invite you to attend that. And we also have the showing of Intelligent Lives. It's a documentary that follows 3 individuals. It's made by the award-making filmmaker Dan Habib, and that will be at Fishers High School Auditorium on Tuesday, March 26th at 6:30 p.m., and that's also free. And you can go to the website to get more information and details. So we encourage you to come. Thank you.
The month of March has been designated as Disability Awareness Month to celebrate and recognize people with disabilities by the Governor of the State of Indiana.
Whereas disability is a natural part of the human experience.
And in no way diminishes the right of individuals with disabilities to live independently.
Enjoy self-determination, make choices, contribute to society, and experience full
in the economic, political, social, cultural,
and educational mainstream of American society.
And whereas family members, friends, and members of the community can play a central role in enhancing the lives of people with disabilities,
especially when the family and community are provided with necessary support services.
And public and private employers are aware of the capabilities of people with disabilities
to be engaged in competitive work in inclusive settings.
Properly include providing individuals with disabilities
the opportunities and support
to make informed choices and decisions,
Live in homes and communities where such individuals can exercise their full rights and responsibilities as citizens,
pursue meaningful and productive lives,
contribute to their family, community, state, and nation.
Therefore, I, Scott Fadness, Mayor of the City of Fishers, along with the Honorable City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of March as Disability Awareness Month in the City of Fishers. Furthermore, I encourage the citizens of Fishers to seek counsel and input from any person or group with knowledge and expertise in matters concerning disabilities.
I just also want to thank the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability for organizing all the events that we have planned for the month of March, especially the March Disability Awareness Subcommittee and all those members and community partners that have been involved. It's a big, major undertaking, and we've done a lot to help empower the community this month on disability. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Coble, for all of your work on the disabilities group. It's really inspiring to see where you've brought that initiative over the last few years. I know we're all very proud of your work as well as the committees. Tonight we have one more proclamation. It's apparently a busy month for proclamations. But this one's near and dear to my heart as I've lost loved ones from Parkinson's. Tonight we have a proclamation, and I'll read this as follows and then present it to the folks that are here tonight to represent. Whereas the Indiana Parkinson's Foundation was founded as a 501c3 not-for-profit organization in Hamilton County in February of 2009, and whereas Parkinson's disease is estimated to affect approximately 1 million people in the United States, and the prevalence will more than double by 2040. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic progressive neurological disease and is the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States, and whereas Parkinson's disease is the 14th leading cause of death in the United States, according to the Center of Disease and Control and Prevention, and whereas the Indiana Parkinson Foundation is a place for people with Parkinson's disease to mentally, physically, and spiritually fight the effects of Parkinson's disease, and whereas the Indiana Parkinson's Foundation is dedicated to improving the quality of life for PWPs through exercise, emotional support, counseling, and through prayer, the climb is
The Climb is IPF's exercise program and is a place for reflection and connection to renew people with Parkinson's for the work and pressures of their daily lives. And whereas the month of April is Parkinson's Awareness Month, and IPF is hosting their 7th annual Choose to Move, the Race to End Parkinson's 10K, 5K, 1 mile run on April 13th, 2019 in the city of Fishers at Winton Park. Therefore, I, Scott Fadness, Mayor of the City of Fishers, do hereby proclaim April 13th, 2019 as Indiana's Parkinson's Foundation Day. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Scott. It's kind of neat, even though there are several proclamations, to see how important all of these groups are in the community. So thank you for bringing it to all of our attention. Now we have some exciting presentations to 2 state champions. The first one is the HSC girls basketball team, if they'd like to come up. And I don't know if there's the coach that would like to speak and tell us a little bit about the final victory. We were somewhere, I think we were at the Fireman's Fund, and the announcement was made halfway through the dinner. So we followed you from afar.
Or just stand in a straight line.
Is there a captain that wishes to speak?
Coach is here.
Hi, everybody. We're the Royals, and we won this year at the state championships. It was probably the best experience we've all have had in basketball in our careers, and we just want to say thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. Go Royals.
Can you repeat next year?
What?
Can you repeat next year?
Some of us won't be here, but we hope they do.
Well, great. Yeah,
They're in
congratulations
support.
to you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Hang on, we got Scott.
So, was it tougher to win the championship or deal with Mark Schleifer?
Yeah. Deal with parents.
Oh, I'm the rec board.
I don't usually feel short, but again, standing next to them. That's great. Well, congratulations again to them. Next, we have the state champion Riverside Intermediate School Math Bowl champions.
There's more certificates.
Are you going to just say what was involved?
Yeah, they put the name of each of them.
I'll wait for him to get up there.
Hello. First of all, thank you for inviting us. This is a wonderful opportunity for us. I just want to let everyone know that
We have obviously worked really hard to become state champs. A couple of the kids up here are actually state champs 2 years in a row. For those of you that don't know how this may go, there were over 502 teams in the state who competed for this. And of the 502 teams, there were only 2 teams that scored a 29 out of 32, and we were one of those teams, and ended up breaking the tiebreaker. There's 4 tiebreakers, and in the 4th tiebreaker, we ended up beating the other team and getting state champs again. Riverside Intermediate, this is our 3rd year in a row being state champs, so I'm very proud of these kids and the hard work that they have put into it, so congratulations, you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Did you give the other?
I know.
It's like losing in the 4th overtime.
Cecilia. Todd? Trying to get all of you guys in the video.
Oh, no, that's what the final question. All right, Chris, what's the area of the track field? What's the area of a track field? That's the final question. Yes. Yeah. What? It's not a legal question. Awesome. Well, it's a quarter mile around. So what's the area within? Okay, my favorite part is that you just asked if that was a math question. What is
Getting
that?
cranky there. Little guy getting cranky, or little guy. Pink shoes.
I don't
little
know.
guy.
We're gonna ask.
Thank you, guys.
Nice job. Coach, oh, were you there?
Finance.
Oh, gosh.
John?
Thank you so much. So I heard that the last question was.
Are you all going to stay?
topics, the area
We
of
would
the
welcome you
track
to, or if you'd like to leave, you can too.
field. Okay, well, I'll have to follow up.
Families want to get dinner.
I was gonna say, that'll
That
clear
sounds
out.
good, yeah.
So I just told Chris the final
What's that?
questions
This
for the
hurts.
math bowl I asked my kids. What's the area of the track
Wasn't
field?
that
You know
Brandon
what Chris
one
said?
where we had the
That's a math question.
So what should we do to better
Yeah.
our government, our city, and then they leave, when they ask
Yeah.
a question and then they leave? Are we supposed to answer them?
Go fill
If,
up a
if any of
restaurant.
you guys want to hear John Weingart speak, you may want to stay for a while.
I know how to clear a room,
It's
baby.
riveting.
I know how to clear a room, baby.
A lot of families, that's good. I know. I mean, that's both big teams. It's really grown.
All right, John, do you want to give us the Finance Committee report?
Sure. Finance Committee met last week to discuss a number of items. One thing that is on the agenda this evening is request R031819A, request to approve a resolution of the City of Fishers, Indiana, reestablishing a cumulative capital development fund pursuant to Indiana Code Section, I won't even go through code section, but there is a public hearing tonight. I will kind of give everybody an FYI, this is something that's statutorily required. This is not going to increase anybody's taxes. We only talk about taxes in the fall. We're doing budget season, so if you want to come up and talk in a public hearing about a tax increase, this isn't happening. All this is merely a statutory requirement to reestablish this fund that is involved with the capital assets of our city. We talked about the financial statements, as we move over to our new software, and also impending audit by our independent CPA firm. They're already starting to make some visits here. So Lisa will provide more clarification on this particular item 11 on the budget, when she's up here with, when it comes up on the agenda.
Thank you, John. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion made by Todd, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 7, R031819B. Megan.
Good evening, Council. For the record, Megan Baumgartner, Director of Economic Development. My first item for your review tonight and approval is the second amendment to the Economic Development Agreement for Knowledge Services. In May of 2017, Council approved an economic development agreement for Knowledge Services relocation of their headquarters to Fishers. It's an 80,000 square foot office building. Their commitment was about 400 new jobs to the city with amazing wages. They purchased 17 acres on the northeast corner of I-69 and 106th Street from Navient. At that time, when they approached the city council, it was about really just looking at their building instead of the entire development area of those 17 acres. Since that time, and since including their development partners, they're taking a more holistic approach to that area and trying to be very thoughtful. So the second amendment is to extend the commencement of their construction from March 31st until the end of September of this year. The city is extremely confident that Joe and Julie Belowski, and they've reiterated this to us, that they're committed to making this an incredible development and just making sure that they're thoughtful. So we ask for your approval tonight of that amendment. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by John,
Second.
second by Selena. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good, thank you. Item R031819C. Megan again?
I'm always so bad at this. All right, the second item tonight is an approval of a project agreement. In December, the City Council approved a project agreement for First Internet Bank SPF 15 as part of a larger development with Browning Investments. This is the north side development the north side project agreement for that larger development. As part of this, we anticipate about $61 million worth of new investment. The area that it encompasses is north of 116th Street. The western border is what will be the Nickel Plate Trail. Eastern border is Maple Street, and the northern border is North Street. As part of this project, Browning Investments and CRG, their joint development name is Nickel Plate North Properties. They anticipate 235 new residential units. That'll include 9,400 square feet of additional retail and office. That does not include the existing structures along 116th Street. Those 3 buildings that are there right now, those will also remain. As part of this, there is a 329-spot parking garage, and 55 of those spots will be dedicated to the city for our exclusive use. The other great part about this is that they are working very closely with the city on incorporating the main plaza area that'll be to the north of our existing buildings right now with the Nickel Plate Trail, and making it a really cohesive area that improves pedestrian connectivity. As part of this $61 million investment, the city is offering various incentives for the project. The first one is land acquisition costs for the 11 different parcels that are included in this area. The parking garage impact fee waiver will be offering allowances for various utility and public infrastructure work. This will be allowances towards the public plaza that I mentioned earlier, work along Maple Street, and along the public right-of-way on 116th Street. We'll also be offering incentives to help rehabilitate the existing buildings along 116th Street. It's important to the city that we're able to keep the vitality of that area and then encourage those existing tenants to be able to stay there. So as part of our negotiation, we've also included language that requires Browning Investments and CRG to maintain the existing tenants' existing rents throughout the construction timeline. And then we have a set amount that they are required to start their rents at of $15 a square foot triple net upon completion of the project. For this project, these various incentives will be covered with a $21 million bond. Something that we talked about with our previous project was being able to show the impact that this will continue to have on the city with our existing taxes in the area, and then also the school referendum. So just pointing out here that there is an existing assessed value of about $1.4 million. Those existing taxes will continue to move through, but then we also have the school referendum of $173,000 that will pass through. Tonight we have Jamie Browning and Chris Reed from Browning and CRG. If you would like to come up and say a few words.
Good evening. Again, I'm Jamie Browning with Browning Investments, and this is my partner here, Chris Reed with CRG Residential. You've gotten a pretty thorough explanation of the project. We're very excited to begin the process of redeveloping this area. I think we have a very unique and good floor plan and site plan that has offices, retail, plenty of parking, and residential units to go with to go onto the site. And as was mentioned, we're building a plaza area in between the Nickel Plate restaurants and the three remaining buildings to the east. And obviously, we're retaining those buildings for future use, and there'll be some rehabilitation that goes along with that. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Reed, would you like to say anything?
Thanks, council. I can't tell you, we've spent a lot of effort behind the scenes on this project with the thought of how do we preserve downtown Fishers from its history. And so there was a lot of effort to make sure that those three structures were incorporated into this asset. So we're excited to be here, and this has been a long road to hoe and to get this thing off to the races. So how exciting. I mean, the mayor was very clear to me this was a vital asset, and take it very seriously. So I'm a Fishers resident, all you know, so this is home base to me. This will be a personal pet project, and my goal is to make us all proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council?
Can you share a little bit about what the plaza, like the vision of the plaza, and kind of how it will connect with like the Nickel Plate Trail, and what you foresee as kind of the vision there, so that people get a better understanding?
Cecilia, the trail comes out about midway back, so that, as you know, the trail goes underneath 116th Street. So that plaza will have a connector bridge that goes up and over to connect into which would be the west side of the trail. That will be art statue is what a big statue what we have laid out. Brick pavers, so it's very pedestrian friendly. Our whole thing was to try to start connecting all four sides of the street right there. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I may add one. Maybe you've heard this, but just kind of want to go of record because I participated in a retail focus group that we had recently. And one of the things that came out from that discussion was just the difficulty for some of the small shops as things are developing to find a replacement location for themselves. If there's a way, as you finalize your plans, to incorporate a little more commercial space, I mean, it could be office, could be some mix of retail office. I know the Spark has done a nice job, and I think actually has been kind of surprised at how much commercial was ending up locating on some of those ground floors. So to the extent that you can do that, I know Maple Street really honestly is becoming a growing commercial corridor, so that may be an area, but I'll leave that to you. I understand there's some balance that has to be maintained with parking and such, and we've been sensitive to that. So if you can, as you finalize your plans, try and work toward that, that would be my request. But I'm in favor of what you're doing, so.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of discussion, Rich, about that, and there is a possibility that we could creep south on North Street, so.
Okay.
We're willing to, if it can make sense, and we're willing to take a hard look at it.
Well, I'm excited about the project and everything going on in downtown Fishers. I moved here in '89 and used to walk up and down the streets from Charleston Crossing to McDonald's. That's where I worked. So I'd have people scream out of their cars making fun of me because I wore my uniform down there. But there was not much to do. There wasn't much. I felt like I went back. I wasn't real smart back then. It wasn't. But anyways, it's exciting to come into Fishers, to drive downtown, and to stop and walk and see all the people that are out. And this continues to drive that vision. And I just am excited about it. And if there's no other comments, I want to make a motion to approve.
Anybody else? Any other comments? All right. Todd's made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Cecilia. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And one abstention.
Oh, one abstention. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Item number 9, 031819. F.
Good evening, Council. Lindsay Bennett, Assistant City Attorney. I believe you said we're here on 031819F. Is that correct? Item 9?
The ordinance.
So with mowing season upon us, I'm here with an amendment to the weed and grass ordinance. We changed the definition of weed and other rank vegetation to specify that all plants set forth in the Indiana's code section on the weed control boards is included in our definition. I noticed that many other communities are actually using this in their definitions, and I took a look at it and I thought it would be a good fit here. We kept the prohibition of grass in excess of 8 inches tall. We kept some of the exceptions that are currently in there for wetlands, nature preserves, undeveloped areas, our stormwater best management practice areas. We also added an exception for golf courses that are in operation. Basically, they're landscape areas that include the teeing ground, the fairways, the rough, the hazard, and the putting areas. So we would be able to enforce in the event that any of these golf courses shut their doors. We've also had some questions in the past about enforcing against golf courses for some of the landscape that they do, and that's not something that we currently do. So this kind of further sets that out and makes it more explicit so there's no confusion in the future as to whether we're going to enforce against golf courses or not. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions, Council? I'll make a comment. Lindsay, I think you've done a great job addressing what I think we were trying to be proactively, protecting against, and I think this ordinance does it. Yet, I will say that I had a couple of conversations today with one resident, and she had asked if we could have some additional time to work through some of her concerns. So while it is possible that we could have all 3 readings tonight, I said that I would vote against that. So I think I just want to make that known to people as we decide about what to do with the readings.
What were the concerns?
I think where it primarily got bogged down was about Heather and the concern there about, because I think for most people who play golf, they understand that Heather can be, a nice, attractive feature, and if you're playing in, over in link style European courses, I mean that's part of the golf course. I know even for the Hawthorns where I play, that's an attractive part of the golf course. I personally am in favor of that. Yet her concern was related to that it becomes unruly and actually, weed infested, also with, rats and other animals that might congregate there. So I think the discussion will probably be ways in which we can kind of bridge that, if you will, that concern, and still allow for that to be included. So that's where, as she raised the question and concern, I said, well, let me raise that with council, and we'll try and have further discussion about it.
Well, if I'm,
I thought we had done, because I had some discussion with Lindsay, actually, with the drafting of this, that we had done a pretty good job addressing it. I honestly didn't anticipate there being a problem, but it came back that there was a concern. So being respectful to that wish, again, that's, I would ask that we not have all 3 readings tonight.
So first reading.
First reading?
well, if I may,
Yes, please.
I'm not a golfer, so I am not super familiar with the heather aspect, but from what I understand, it is part of the landscape and kind of the motif of the golf course. It's still not something that we would go in and tell a golf course, hey, this is over 8 inches, you need to cut it down, because it is part of their landscaping. If it's going to get unruly and if there's rodents, then she can certainly call our inspectors to come out and take a look at it, and that is a matter of public health and safety, so that would kind of step outside of the weed and grass, and we would address it, probably not in the weed and grass ordinance, but maybe with some other enforcement mechanism. And then I think she had another concern about, you said it was unruly in the heather. What was her other concern?
I mean, really, I remember there being questions about the definition itself and what was included and everything, so.
So it's going to be impossible to define everything in this ordinance. And even if this went to court, if it was challenged, a judge is not probably going to look any further than the plain definition of controlled heather. He's going to look and see if it's ambiguous. If it is, he's going to look at the legislative intent. And honestly, it's pretty clear here that what we're trying to do is accept out any golf course landscaping, and that would include controlled heather. I'm certainly happy to work with her on any language, and with you, of course, on any language that you may propose, but I'm not sure that we're going to get much more than what we already have. But again, certainly happy to address those in the coming weeks and come back next month on third reading.
Yep, well, thank you, I appreciate that.
So you're saying you're not going to pass tonight, and I made so.
Yeah, I guess
You
John
will
made a
you will
motion
not
just for.
suspend the rules. You will not pass them,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll have the motion for first reading then,
Okay.
right?
Correct.
What's next?
Yeah, we'll circle back
Yep.
and appreciate the feedback.
Sure. Thanks.
I did that in deference, yes. Okay, thank you. Item, let's see, R031819E, is that you again?
That's me again, Lindsay Bennett, Assistant City Attorney. I'm here tonight to request approval of an interlocal between the City of Fishers and Hamilton County for the Youth Assistance Program. As you know, YAP helps at-risk youth in the community to prevent them from becoming part of the juvenile and criminal system. The Council Nonprofit Committee met last summer and approved an allocation of $65,000 for YAP. So this interlocal dictates how the funds are disseminated and the terms of that allocation. It's substantially similar to the interlocals that we've had in past years. The only thing that we changed this year was to allow for a yearly renewal. So every year, the interlocal renews without us having to come back. It does have a termination date if council decides they don't want to fund it for the next year. There's a termination date of November 1st so that we can get through the budget approval process and decide if we're going to fund it or not. And then we would just give notice that we're not going to continue. The Hamilton County Council already approved this version of the interlocal, and they are sending it to the other Hamilton County communities to be approved as well. It's as you probably know, it's a joint venture between Hamilton County and all the other communities in Hamilton County to provide these services. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions, council? Motion. Second. All right, motion made by Todd, seconded by David. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Item R031819A.
Good evening. For the record, Lisa Bradford, City Controller. I'm here to discuss the motion to reestablish the Cumulative Capital Development Fund. A little background, the Cumulative Capital Development Fund, commonly known as the CCD Fund, was first established by Fishers in 1984, went into effect 1/1 of 85. It is provided under Indiana code that you can establish this, and it can be used for any municipal purpose. For Fishers, we use it for capital development projects such as HVAC replacement, new roofs for various city buildings, windows, repayment of our fleet leases. And through our fleet leases, that's where we get our fire equipment, our capital for police cars, the 15 to 18 that we replace each year, are financed through the fleet loan. The state of Indiana changed their law a few years ago, and you are required to reestablish the CCD fund now every year if you wish to continue it. And so this has no effect, as you was mentioned, on the 2019 tax rate. This is something that is for 2020. Under state law, you have to reestablish your CCD fund for the next year by April 30th of the current year. If there are any questions, the max can only be 0.05 per $100 of assessed value, and that's the max, and it's included with the rest of the city's unit tax rate on property tax bills.
Thank you, Lisa. Before we open it up to the public, this is a public hearing. Are there any questions at this point from council? All right, so this is a public hearing. If there are members of the public who wish to speak, if you would introduce yourself, state your name and address for the record, you will be given 3 minutes to speak. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any further questions? John, do you want to say anything further?
I think Lisa covered extremely well, as usual. I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and pass on first reading.
Motion made by John, second by Todd, to suspend the rules and approve on first reading. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Very good.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve by John, second by Todd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Item 12-031819A.
Good evening, Council. Tony Bagato, Director of Planning and Zoning. Real quick, I want to just introduce Jesse Boschel, who's been with our team since August, but it's his first time presenting here, so treat him kindly. No, I was joking. But he grew up in Indianapolis, and he went to Ball State, making him the 4th member of the team from Ball State, so they've done really well on their planning program. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jesse. Just want to introduce him.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. For the record, Jesse Boschel, Planner 2 of Planning and Zoning. The item you have before you tonight is a rezone for 12244 East 116th Street. It is a 1.97 acre parcel that is currently zoned C2C. Back in 2014, it came before you and was rezoned to C2C for the previous owner to operate the various businesses that they had at this site. Currently, and as you will see, it is east of the Simply Dental PUD. The petitioner is seeking to rezone this property from C2C to PUDC to create the Shamrock Offices PUD, restricting the uses to C1 commercial. The petitioner has proposed a single-story, 15,000 square foot multi-tenant residential style office building that will have space for 6 tenants. And petitioner received PUD committee approval for architecture and site plan on February 6th, and also received unanimous Plan Commission approval on February 6th as well. Just to give you an idea of what it's going to look like, this is the concept aerial right here. As you will see, it will connect to the Simply Dental PUD. I'm just giving it connection. Site plan showing the landscaping and the proposed building. It complements the Simply Dental buildings to the east, and it will also complement the residential nature of the area. Just to give you points of interest of the ordinance, the architectural standards, lighting standards, parking standards, open space standards, service hours are all more restrictive than our UDO currently has, so they will be more conducive to the residential nature of the area and will not cause a nuisance to the area. And the remainder of the development standards will comply with the City of Fishers UDO. Staff is supportive of the rezone from C2C to PUDC, restricting the uses to C1. C1 requires stricter development standards and is more restrictive on allowed uses, and the ordinance sets standards that will be more conducive to the surrounding residential uses. If you have any further questions, I'll be happy to answer those. We have representation for Shamrock Builders as well, if they would like to come speak.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm a partner in the law firm of Faegre Baker Daniels, and I'm pleased to be here tonight representing Shamrock Builders and this development project. Thank you, Jesse, for your work with Greg O'Haron. Greg is having shoulder surgery this week, so I've been in close contact with him, but that's the reason he's not here. But if there's any questions, he's a phone call away if anybody has anything. I think Jesse did a great job explaining the project, and we did have unanimous favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission and the PUD Committee. The only other thing I would add is Greg did host a neighbors meeting, and then there was no remonstrance at the Planning Commission. So with that, we would respectfully request your approval tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Questions from council?
So go ahead. Okay, all right. So I was concerned when the first project was going up and thought that the finished product was absolutely amazing on I think just west of that. The only thing I would say here, and it's not a huge deal, it's just a little bit of the fit and finish of it looks a little more as a strip center versus just to the west. It looks more blended into architectural standards of the homes in the residential area. So, I mean, we're just kind of on the final hour with this, but that's the only feedback I would give. I'm not against this. I just want you to understand that. I just think it's moving a little further down toward a traditional strip center. Instead of, if you actually look at the renderings of what's up there right now, just to the west of it, is great. So I see a difference there. I'm a little.
It's not really the final hour. We just don't do first
right.
readings.
Well,
so
that's where
first readings.
So I probably would be opposed to this on this initial pass. I'm not opposed to the project in general. I just want you to understand that. But it is starkly different from what was put up just to the west. And I think with the residents in that area, they really appreciated what was previously. Do you happen to have pictures of that available?
Yeah, I was just asking. We had that, I think, earlier at the earlier meetings. There's two buildings on the Simply Dental. There's the Simply Dental building that is very much almost like a house.
Right, exactly.
And then the building that's immediately, are you able to pull up the aerial that we have? The building that's immediately adjacent to this site is more of a multi-tenant building that, and I apologize, we don't have in this material here to be able to pull that up.
Yeah, so those two right there are very much residential looking buildings. Fits right into the.
So this building here is the Simply Dental offices.
Right, yep.
This is a multi-tenant building that.
But it still looks like a larger home.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, there's no rush, so it's, Greg will be happy to come back here to work through this. And he had told me even again, at the PUD committee, he had the same thing, has no issue with you, but just needs to be able to have some specific direction and guidance, and has been always throughout the whole process said, just let us know what it is you'd like to see, and they're happy to kind of work through the design. And he's made changes from the PUD committee as requested.
I was going to say, I just wanted to share a little bit of the history, having been involved with the PUD and the Planning Commission review. This building has evolved. I believe the earlier version did not include dormers. There were elevation differences too, right, Brad? You can help me with this. So there have been attempts to make it more, let's say, residential or garden office focused, but I think there probably still are some things, to your point, that can be done to help it. So
I think what would help is just a side-by-side and just see what that is and make sure that we're within that. Sure. I get what they're trying to do here. I understand that. Once again, it's starkly different to me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It'd be nice if they complemented.
Complimented.
Vented.
You got it.
All three were, you know.
Well, they just, again, they took out kind of more of the storefront glass that was more retail-oriented. Help me too, Leah. There was also the incorporation of more stone in the building. But I think, again, to your point, it probably can, go maybe a step or two further. And my sense is,
I think they can, and our planning department had some suggestions as well, so they can keep working to make it more fitting for the area.
Yeah, and just from a guidance perspective, I believe that Shamrock has done all of the specific things that the PUD committee and the staff has asked for. And Jesse's going to try to pull up Google Maps right now so we can use some technology so you can see. We did this at the PUD committee. We walked through it, we looked at it, and people said, okay, this, maybe if you change the color of the stone on this building to make it complementary, not exact, but complementary for the multi-tenant building next door. And so we were taking this specific direction there. And I know Greg will say he's fine with if there's other specific things.
So in other words, what we're saying is we can rezone this appropriately. We can still work with Shamrock and staff to upgrade and make this facility complement the other facility that's next to it. Is that what we're saying?
My recommendation, Councilman Weingart, based on Steve
trying to get
Harden's
this moving.
comments that this isn't a sense of urgency over the next 30 days.
Right.
I think what Steve's driving at here is what are the specific outcomes or feedback that the council has so that he can go back and work with staff to achieve that. Because to date, I think, Steve, you're paraphrasing, you're saying we've done all the things that staff and PUD committee have asked for. So what additionally would the council want to provide feedback tonight? Or if we're not, for the sake of time, if we don't want to have that tonight, we can gather thoughts from council members and staff can work directly with the team to work on architecture.
Just to be specific, part of what I see is you've got the two roof elements on the left and the right, and you've got the dormers in the middle, as opposed to
Yeah,
maybe
this
something
looks,
more flat.
and I'm not an architect, okay, so I'm not trying, but it just, this looks flat, and I like this, where there's multiple, so it looks like there's a couple of residential homes connected there. It just, that
just had
seems like a
we had to
difference to me.
balance-
Does that help?
I do hear what you're saying about
okay.
the residential. We had a lot of discussion at PUD committee from the architect's perspective of trying to make it so that it doesn't look too tall and big, and there's a lot of different things with colors and massing, but I hear what you're.
Okay, all right.
The neighborhood didn't have a problem with this,
No,
Steve?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're effectively downzoning the property from C2.
I understand, Todd, your personal request, but the PUD's already done all this, the Plan Commission's already done this, and then to come to us and say you're gonna start all over, I don't know if that's fair to the petitioner, because they did everything that was asked by all these other boards, and those are the boards advising us. So,
And I would say that if they would have a first reading here before, we could already have these comments out there, and therefore we wouldn't be going back and forth. So, first time I'm seeing this, that's the feedback I have.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I think, Steve, your petitioner is okay with the 30-day extension here. So I do think we can work with all of you, get your direct feedback, and bring
And
this
I'm
back
just
quickly.
one person here, so if everybody's good with that, they can roll.
Yeah.
So,
so is there a motion, or are we just agreeing to continue? Is that what we're?
Need a motion to table? I'll make a motion to table.
Okay, motion made to table by
Second.
John, second by Todd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
Great. And I'll let Greg know that anyone on the council that has any specific requests or feedback, get it to
We'll
the staff.
we'll work with staff to aggregate all the feedback so we
Yep.
don't get.
Yep.
No
We'll
problem.
be good.
Okay,
Okay? Thank you.
just
Yep.
Todd, one question, is what you would like to see is the right building to look like the left
Just-
building?
Yeah, just,
Okay,
yeah,
there's
just
more
more
like
like
that.
that.
There's
That's just
some
the
logic
direction,
to that.
because it's fantastic. Like what it's fantastic. The residents love it. It fits right in there, so that's.
Is that the feedback, Steve?
Yep.
That's feedback. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
probably
thank
is
you.
something we'd talk further about the order that we have this. I know we've gone back and forth between having the first reading and not, so that's just another
Yeah,
topic.
We can't fix that right now, but.
All right, well, let's move to item 13031, 819B. Ms. Ross?
Good evening. For the record, Ross Hillary, City of Fishers, Planning and Zoning Department.
Also proud Ball State grad with Jesse, so just like to point that out. Thanks, Tony, for the shout out. For the record tonight, you are seeing ordinance number 081819B, which is the final reading for the rezone of the stations at Fishers District. Little feedback, the subject property is located at 9712 as well as 9799 East 116th Street, approximately 8.5 acres. The Thompson Thrift requests a favorable decision tonight to rezone the property from PUDC to PUDM. The project includes 70,000 square feet of office, commercial, 10,000 square feet of retail, a hotel, and approximately 15 townhomes. One of the things I'm going to point out is the connectivity that this will help with the Kroger Commercial Center as well as the Yard at Fishers District. Here's an exhibit that was included in the PUD. You can kind of see there a bit of disconnect between the concept plan for the yard as well as the commercial Kroger Center on the right. Their plan tonight shows not only pedestrian connectivity but also vehicular connectivity off of 116th Street would be accomplished with this rezoning. Site plan here shows mixed retail office building and commercial building along 116th Street, a hotel in the center, a boulevard connecting those two developments I just spoke of, and a mixture of front and rear townhomes. The PUD included renderings of the mixed retail office building, which was approved at the PUD committee earlier this month, as well as elevations of both the rear and front load townhomes. The elevations of the townhomes were also approved at the PUD committee. The petitioner would return to the PUD committee for approval of both the commercial and hotel architecture in the future. Timeline for the project, again, PUD committee saw the site plan as well as the office mixed retail and townhomes on the March 6th with the 3-0 approval. And Plan Commission saw this with a favorable recommendation of 9-0. There was some comments from Plan Commission that was addressed by the petitioner, and that was added to the ordinance, including some architecture on the back of those north townhomes. There was a neighborhood meeting on February 25th that Thompson Thrift hosted. There was no issues at that night. So with that, staff recommends that City Council holds this final reading and approves the stations at Fishers District rezone. Petitioner is also here to answer any questions.
Petitioner?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm pleased to be here representing Thompson Thrift, and with me from Thompson Thrift is Mr. Don Potter, and also from Pulte Homes, Mr. Dave Compton and Mr. Rex Ramage are here. The only other thing I was going to add was that we did not have any remonstrance from the neighbors, and I think Ross covered that after our neighbors meeting. And so we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, we would respectfully request your approval tonight. Thank you.
Questions from council?
I have some questions, just some things about this project. Originally, when we started there, how much was the original investment by Thompson Thrift?
Just on the for the stations?
Just the original part.
It was 45 million, is that right?
How much?
The original, you're talking about all three phases of the yard.
I want the original, what we originally started with in this project.
On the yard was 45 million, I think. Don,
45
is that
million.
roughly correct?
And during that period of time, how much additional investment has Thompson Thrift entertained and also got online with respect to this project, including this one we're talking about tonight? Rough numbers?
120, 140 million.
140 million, we start with 45, another 120 million, correct? How much is, again, just for public purposes, how much is the city as far as what is our investment in this project?
I believe between the garage and our original, we're probably at the 10 to 12 million
10 to 12 million, and we've had to acquire to do any more investing above and beyond what Thompson Thrift. So we were in for 45 million starting out, we did what, 10 million?
Yeah.
And we got another how many million on top of that?
Yeah, so it's been, yeah, it's a great problem to have there.
It's a great problem to have, absolutely it is.
Yeah.
How much in any idea what taxation will come off this project that will generate and bypass through the referendum? Any thoughts? I don't, again, I don't know. So I didn't know the numbers.
You're putting me on the spot here. 140 million, if you assume it's assessed at that dollar amount, it's 140,000 times 22 cents. It
You want the Riverside math team to help you?
Yeah,
Yeah, they left too early.
I would, It's north of $100,000.
Okay, another $100,000, plus we have the base increment, which is
Yeah.
homes that were there before.
Well,
I
keep in
guess-
mind, those homes weren't even in Fishers.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so this is-
So they were in unincorporated Delaware Township. So they weren't part of the Fishers tax base. We brought those in, they are part of the Fishers tax base now. I guess the point I'm trying to make, and this has been a tremendous investment opportunity for our community. And it's not only been a great benefit for our community, but also for our schools, and we're gonna have an additional increment coming out of the ground that otherwise wouldn't have been there and not even been a part of Fishers, just to make that point.
Thank you.
And we're not investing any more. We're not, our budget's not, we're not doing anything else there, correct? At this point?
Not at this point, no.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Just, sorry, I had to make my point.
So there won't be an additional request, because you guys are, because there's a creek that goes through now, and so you're gonna fill that in, there's a lot of extra civil costs?
Yeah, that's not on the agenda tonight, but that's coming. There is we've been discussing, we've even had discussions with city leadership throughout the process, some of the unusual costs associated with this project, but that'll come back before anything happens.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
That's my point.
Thank you,
It's
David.
not- But there is a little.
There may
bit of
be
an
some
increment.
more.
Yes. The one question I had when I look at this, I almost look at it as though there are puzzle pieces, and I think you guys have done a great job with everything that you're putting in the ground and everything you said you were going to do. So you've got the front part that has the White House, and then you've got the creek, kind of just bear with me for a minute, it goes through the middle, and then you've got the area in the back. And you've got the townhomes in the back, and then to the front, you have the hotel where kind of the creek goes. And then my thought is, in the future, sometimes it's better to have a little bit of natural terrain. So if there is some additional costs, we could actually save those costs, leave that middle part somewhat as it is, and then you could have some area in the front, that could be the office or the hotel. Now, you would not have one of the uses, and then in the back, you would still have the residential. So I just wanted to throw that out to the group. When I look at this, I almost see that there's an opportunity to leave some of that middle part, and you would give up one of the uses, but you could have either the hotel or the office up front, and you could have the residential to the back. But then you'd still have a nice project, and then you still have some of the terrain that's there now for the future.
Is that a legal drain? I think it's a legal
It is.
drain. Yeah, so you've got pretty significant setbacks that are gonna be required there, so I think what I understood, they're gonna pipe that, right? So
Yes.
I know you give up that, but I mean, my worry is this isn't that large of a site, and you start to lose usable area, just being sensitive to it. You know, I guess I wanted to make a couple points that came out in the planning commission. I mean, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but there were a couple of things, and I wanted to publicly acknowledge what the petitioner did to modify the site plan, because there was actually a, you know, relatively significant reduction of townhomes to preserve more of that commercial in the site. But I think the benefits of this connectivity to Kroger and the yard is beneficial. But one thing that came up was concerns over traffic safety through that drive that goes through there. And I think it was going to be okay to just install some sort of stop signs there to kind of, you know, I guess, discourage people from racing through. The second thing that was material was that the elevation of the building was so attractive from the front that the site plan didn't really depict what was going on there. It was a narrower front. And I just wanted to acknowledge that one thing that the petitioner said they were going to look at is the idea of maybe shifting that drive out to 116th Street so that the orientation is maximized and really presents such, you may remember if you recall the elevation or rendering that was presented. I mean, it's a very attractive front, and I think that's what we want to see. So we didn't want to see the side of the building. And I guess back to your concern, I understand what you're saying, but I can also understand from the development perspective what impact that may have on the overall development.
Yeah, and particularly, I think some of our early meetings with the city leadership, including council, has been to encourage, you know, like I think you just described it, encourage more of the commercial and less of the townhomes, which has been pushed down and, you know, to accommodate that. So I think that would probably be a pretty difficult thing to try to dramatically change the concept plan at this point.
Have you applied for the variance from the Drainage Board yet, Steve?
I'm not aware of that. This is Don Potter with Thompson Thrift.
Good evening. Actually, what the ditch out there was the legal drain that collected the water from the Fishers District, all the residential properties. When we did that project, this legal drain here was vacated. So there is still a legal drain adjacent to it, but it is piped under the ground in a 60-inch pipe. So it's,
So the open drain is no longer.
so the open drain is no longer, correct. So we'll fill that in.
Other questions, comments? Council?
I just wondered about landscaping, trees and things, because right now I don't see like a landscape plan or anything like that. Will there be more like trees or shrubbery around the
Oh, yeah, it's
development?
gonna be, I mean,
Okay.
it's not changed, it'll be
It's not just gonna be
consistent.
asphalt and
No, I mean, it's
pavement
just
or
not on the detail, we're not to that level yet, but you'll have the full landscaping plan, just like under the UDO that we've defaulted to.
Okay. John? Anybody wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made by John, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Selena. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you very much.
6-1?
Yeah.
6-1. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is item 14031-819C.
Good evening. For the record, Megan Schaefer with the Planning and Zoning Department. The item before you is a request to vacate a portion of the right-of-way within the Arbor Pines subdivision, Section 1. So Arbor Pines on this map, sorry, it's a little hard to see here, is located in the very southeast corner of Fishers. So just west of Fortville, just east of the Bridger Pines subdivision. So to give you some history on why this is being requested, this development was first approved by council, the PUD ordinance, in 2006. Construction began on Section 1 in about 2017, so the streets and utilities have been installed for Section 1, and the homes are currently under construction. Fortville Water Utility provides public water to this neighborhood, and its water meter pits are located in the front yards just a few feet outside of the street right-of-way. Over the past years, the City of Fishers has revised our standard right-of-way width for neighborhood streets, so increasing the width from 50 feet to 56 feet. In this case with Arbor Pines, the development plans correctly provided the 56 required right-of-way. However, the water meter pits were incorrectly staked and installed based on the previous 50-foot right-of-way, resulting in the water meter pits straddling the right-of-way line. Let me see if I can. So the top street cross-section shows the approved 56-foot right-of-way. So this was approved to accommodate the wider planting strip between the sidewalk and the curb to help with street tree plantings. And then the one on the bottom shows the 53-foot requested right-of-way tonight. So vacating a total of 3 feet of right-of-way. This will ensure that the water meter pits are now installed on private property, which is according to the Fortville Water Utility regulations, it needs to be placed on private property, not within the right-of-way. And it's also a recommendation of our Public Works Department that that be provided on private property. The water system, all the water meter pits for Section 1 have been installed, and the system's currently in operation and has passed all necessary testing. So instead of relocating those water meter pits, we're just requesting that the right-of-way be vacated on those local roads. Section 2 will then also be revised to be consistent with the 53 feet that we see today. The PUD will also need to be, there's going to be a text amendment to the PUD that will go before Plan Commission next month, and then council will probably see it next month as well. Steve Harden is here as well, representing the petitioner.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Steve Harden, and I'm pleased to be here representing the developer August Development LLC, which is an affiliate of Boomerang Development, Corby Thompson. Their contractor is who our client is also in this case. And unlike other projects where we're here talking about significant land use and planning issues, this is one where they're really requesting mercy from the City Council, as Megan did a great job of making something that's relatively complex much more simple. The plans were prepared correctly, approved correctly, and then as a result of the change of the different right-of-way cross-sections, the meter pits were installed kind of under the old way of doing it, and where they were located could cause interference with where the sidewalks would normally go. And from a safety perspective, from the sidewalks, they wanted to be able to make sure that that didn't happen by having those water meter pits not right on the right-of-way line. So the first question was, well, then why don't you just tear them out and just redo them? And what I've learned from this project was that once they're already installed and operational, there's a degradation that just happens. When you have to start ripping out infrastructure and putting it back in, it was viewed as that it was more appropriate, after speaking with the town of Fortville utility, the planning department, engineering department here, to have 1.5 feet of the right-of-way vacated so that we're keeping the infrastructure where it's in place and then just pulling the right-of-way in a little bit, and it wasn't causing any trouble for the city from a engineering or right-of-way perspective. So this is really, I think, one of the first times I've ever come before you and on behalf of a client ask for mercy, but that's really what it is. They physically could do it. They physically could go and rip everything out and put it back in, but it felt like it was appropriate to be able to just revise the right-of-way on this particular case. So that's what we're here requesting tonight. And as Megan mentioned, then they would be back in front of you next month with a small change to the PUD text as well. Thank you very much.
Steve, a question.
Yes, sir.
This is, the water served by this town of Fortville.
That's correct.
Does their service extend west to these other projects that were recently developed? And are they, I guess, immune from this problem, or?
They don't have, there's no issue with
Okay.
how those were installed. I don't recall where their service area, it seems like it probably could go to there. I don't know how far west they go, but they don't have, the other developments that are already in or not, don't have the same issue. Yeah, thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I think it makes sense, and I'll be supportive. The only thing I want to bring up is, I know, Mr. Mayor, you've met with us on street trees, and we're going to create another issue. This is probably already so narrow, but you go from 7.5 to 6, and so is there something else that we need to look at for their landscaping, so that maybe we shift that? So we approve this, it gets more narrow? Does that make sense?
I'd be open
Maybe
to
we
it.
look at
I
that
mean,
later.
I
Maybe
think
look at that later on, you know what I
Clearly,
mean?
I don't want to fix any more sidewalk panels than we need to.
Yep.
So
And I don't
if we
mean
can
relinquish-
prevent it.
And I don't
yeah,
mean
let's-
lessen landscape requirements, I mean just shift it. You guys can
Yep.
work through that.
Move the street
but-
tree to the front
Yeah,
yard or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's good to surface that. Yeah, we'll circle back on that.
Okay, thanks. I'd make a motion to,
Rich, this requires a public hearing.
Oh, this is a public hearing? I didn't realize that. Okay. So this is a public hearing, I've just been informed. Are there members of the public that would wish to speak? If so, if you would state your name and address for the record, you'd be given 3 minutes. Any members who wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you, Chris.
Now you can have a motion to suspend if you like.
make a motion to suspend and vote on it first reading.
I'll second.
Motion made by David, second by Todd. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by David, second by Todd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 15, 021-819E.
Rich, before Tony gets going, this ordinance was tabled at the last council meeting, so if we could have a motion to reconsider before Tony presents it.
I see, okay, thank you. So is there a motion to reconsider? This was the one that got tabled at the last meeting?
I'll make a
Was
motion. I'll make
there
the
any
motion.
issue? I mean. No, I think we got it worked out. Okay, you're good? Okay.
Were there maintenance bonds that were supposed to be
Guys,
included?
so for the
I think
discussion.
we gotta open it first, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All
Yeah,
right.
okay.
All right, so there's a motion made by John, second by?
Brad made the
Brad
motion.
made the motion,
Brad.
second by John.
All right, thank you. So all in favor of reopening this?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good, okay, so now we can hear from you, Tony?
Okay, again, good evening, Tony Bagato, Director of Planning and Zoning, and as Chris indicated, this item was before you last month for an amendment to our surety standards. And towards the end of the meeting, there was discussion between the mayor and Brad and the council members about, trying to hone in on 2 focal points with the ordinance. So in the amendment before you tonight, under item 3 of the ordinance, that's where the 2 changes occurred. It should be A and then B with the underlined sections. So A says built to the applicable standards, so what we're highlighting here is that, we want these things inspected and making sure they were built to the standards in place by the city. If they were not built to those standards and it was the developer's fault, the developer would be responsible as part of that inspection to fix that. If it was built to the standard or wasn't and the city missed that, then the city would be liable for that. And then the second part, B, gets to the neglect due to maintenance. And so we heard concerns that there's been a lack of maintenance or deferred maintenance by the time these areas get turned over to the HOA, and now the HOA, as the residents, are responsible for fixing it. And so this added language is in there. That's what we're proposing tonight based on the discussion we had. I will point out that Chris did meet with Attorney Tim Oakes for Pulte, who mentioned in lieu of this ordinance, they would prefer to see maintenance bonds on all these areas. That would give a 3-year bond cover over the ponds and all the infrastructure that we're talking about, but that is separate of this. Staff's recommendation from when we worked with initially with Councilmember Dreamer, that this was the best approach to kind of catch long-term development, if that's what the council chooses to do, because a maintenance bond can only go up to 3 years. And so in the case of a development goes longer, this would go, that gives us a surety beyond that. So with that, it was shared with Baggy on Friday, and I have not heard any comments yet, but there's some members here as well as Pulte, and I'm not sure if they want to speak to this matter. But the maintenance bonds, I don't recall it discussed during the actual council meeting. It was more discussed by Chris and Tim Oakes as an option, and we've decided to pursue this option. The council, again, can choose a different direction if you choose, but this is what's presented for you tonight as an amendment. Ultimately, if there's an amendment approved by council, that will have to still go back to Plan Commission and be reviewed there. And if they approve it, that's the final decision. If they don't approve it, it'll come back once again. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Well, I thought
Go ahead.
that there was discussion on the maintenance bond, so I just wanted clarification on that.
Maintenance bond, the project I know is 13 years, so it only cover the first 3. The last 10 would not be covered. Maintenance bond doesn't make any sense on this, in my opinion.
Well, all right, so I've had some discussion as recently as today about this, and I guess I would like to have further discussion about that. I saw merit in maintenance bonds applying to detention ponds and I believe street trees, right? That would be in addition to what we are already requiring for sidewalks, streets, curbs, the works. And my understanding was from the developer, and I guess what then was a meeting that Tim Oakes had with Chris, is part of the benefit that I understood from the development community was that it was able to, at the front end, define a limit there, but also you have protection, because I think in most cases, if there's a failure due to installation, it's going to occur initially. I think, honestly, it gives us the ability, it's probably easier for us as a city to go back after the bond if something fails. Now, granted, long-term, you're right. If it's beyond 3 years, something could happen. But quite frankly, with so much of our detention ponds and other that are out there, they all have silt that builds up, and I have a problem with it just being extended indefinitely. So that's the concern I have, and I guess I was not aware. I thought that actually this was within the ordinance until Cecilia asked the question earlier today, but I see merit to that. I understand there's also a legal question, and I'm not sure I can really define this, but a privity of contract, so I guess that relates to the, parties not being included in the relationship between the two contract parties. So I can't really define exactly what that problem is, but that's another question that exists too. I know this is not a public hearing, but if anybody can help provide clarity, I'd like to invite that.
Question, Rich.
Yes.
Just because we've worked with Councilmember Dreamer on this, and I guess I have a clarifying question from the statement you just made. I don't think anybody, and I don't want to speak for Brad, but I don't think anybody would be opposed to additional public infrastructure included in a bond for the first 3 years. The question on what happens to a development that isn't going to be closed out in 3 years, that goes 5, 7, 10 years, which frankly, the idea that that's going to happen a lot in Fishers going forward probably isn't all that often. And that's, when we crafted the language in this, we crafted the language in such a way that says, A, there's a scenario where they didn't build it the way they were supposed to build it, which, I think there's culpability there and needs to be dealt with. The second one was about this gross negligence concept that said, if I live in a subdivision and this subdivision isn't going to be turned over to the HOA for 8, 9, 10 years, and I'm not in control of the HOA, and for whatever reason that developer decides, I'm not going to spend any money on maintaining these assets the way I should, that at the point that threshold kicks in and says, okay, now HOA, here's your subdivision with all the infrastructure. At that point of turnover, the conversation is there should be a third party that says whether or not there are routine maintenance issues or whether there's gross negligence. The way we drafted this, the way that Chris drafted it, was to take out the scenarios where, yeah, this is routine maintenance, that this is what you would expect after 8 years to see something look at this level of, depreciation, if you will. What we're really trying to catch here are the bad actors, if you will. If someone were to just completely neglect their responsibility in the infrastructure and not allow the residents of that subdivision to maintain it with the HOA dues that they're paying, that there'd be some catch-up at that point where the developer would have to make that right. So I just want to clarify that we're not talking about bringing all public infrastructure at the point of conveyance up to pristine and brand new. We're trying to catch if someone just completely was negligent in their attempt at maintaining the asset. Does that help clarify that point?
It does, but I still go back to even what I remember Corby raising during the discussion of, the fact that there would have to be, I think what he was trying to do is make sure that there was as much, I don't want to say affordability, that's the wrong way of putting it, but the worry being that reserves have to be established for this, whatever the period is for the takeover of the ponds, that they have to reserve for this final inspection that might be 7 or 8 years out from when the project started. So I knew that was a concern. I will tell you, I'm not that hung up on it. I mean, it's just not that important. But I want to be respectful of what I've heard and the concerns that were raised from some of the people so that others can appreciate it. Because it was a little different than what I was understanding was going to be crafted.
In the conversations I had with Corby, all of those have been put in. I had breakfast with him, I listened to him, and agreed with him, and the mayor and I put in what Corby asked for.
I think the broader question that you bring up, Rich, and I would be surprised if Beggy would be supportive of adding additional public infrastructure into the 3-year maintenance if that is on top of what we're also asking for, which is this.
I understood that Tim Oakes was representing Baggy when he had the meeting. That's what I heard. So.
I think they're probably providing you an either-or scenario, not a that plus this. I mean, I don't know.
Chris, do you want to comment?
I think it was an either-or, I think.
Oh, it was either-or.
It was. I think the conversation was it's easier to define on a maintenance bond standard going forward than it is to have a reinspection as we've proposed it.
But I can't emphasize enough the language in here. We were very specific to not hold developers accountable for what is routine depreciation of an asset. This is about neglect.
Okay.
Where we could demonstrate that these folks have taken all the HOA money, hoarded it for whatever reason, spent it on something else, and then you're going to turn over all these public assets to the homeowners, and they're going to be stuck with.
Which is,
a
I
big
know,
bill.
Brad, you had said that was your primary concern.
Yeah, and the mayor's done a good job. I appreciate him listening to me and listening to the other side. And I think this ordinance is better than Carmel's ordinance. And I think it does everything that Corby, I'll use Corby, not all developers, because Corby's the only one I talked to. We eliminated his concerns. If Corby installs something and the city says it's okay, and then the engineer comes back and says it's not, Corby's still off the hook. The city's on the hook. So Corby's thing was, if I get it approved, how are you going to come back? And we put that in there. If the city approves it, the developer's off the hook. And that was the biggest concern that Corby had, and I didn't have a problem with it. As long as we put the sentence in, then the city's on the hook. And that's fine. Somebody has to be responsible for it, not the homeowner. Somebody has to.
Well,
be.
let me just also take this forward, if you can, Chris, if you can address this, because this was tabled and there have been some changes to it, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would go back to Planning Commission.
Yeah, so what we were tasked with was coming up with an amendment consistent with your conversation at last month's council meeting. So we drafted an amendment for your consideration, so that amendment would have to be raised tonight and approved. If that amendment got approved, which is different than what was sent to you from the Plan Commission, that amendment would go back to the Plan Commission for their further consideration. If the Plan Commission approved that amendment, then it would be adopted at the Plan Commission's meeting. If the Plan Commission had further revisions or rejected it, it would come back to the council for one last say.
Got a couple questions. Does staff feel that this, and Brad, I'll lean on you a little bit because you're the one that really kind of the champion of this. Do you feel this offers the proper protection for our residents and their communities?
Yes, I'm satisfied with it. The advisory board, the people that I deal with are happy.
Okay. And we don't feel that it gives undue burden to developers along the way as well?
No, we are elected to protect the residents.
Yes,
This protects
absolutely.
the residents.
Residents are number one with me. I got to make sure they're protected. So I guess from my perspective, if we have something here that provides better protections to our residents, it also gives us that opportunity to step in if we need to, but also holds everybody accountable that needs to be. It's much better than what we had a month ago when we went back and forth for probably 20 minutes on this. So I guess I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made by John, second by Brad.
Request roll call vote.
Okay.
And to
Roll call.
clarify, John, you're making a motion to approve the amendment that was brought forward tonight, correct?
I'm sorry?
You're making a motion to approve the amendment that
That's
was brought
correct.
forward.
So Jen?
Yes.
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 Aye.
Yes.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank Brad and all the team here, did a lot of great work, and
I thank the
that's
city
awesome.
for working with me on this. We come up with a solution.
Okay, item 16, R031819F.
Good evening. Once again, Tony Bagato, Director of Planning and Zoning. The item before you is request approval of a deficiency report, and the exhibit was in your staff report, but I'll highlight it here tonight on the overhead. This is the area that's currently known as the Geist Waterfront Park that's been acquired by the city. As part of the acquisition, there is a cell tower on the property, and that cell tower is already existing, and since this is all considered one parcel today, it currently complies with all the development standards within the UDO. As we go to develop the park, though, we're going to create separate parcels, and that little red dot I'll try to highlight here. Right there is a red dot. That is where the cell tower is, and the city is going to sell that to the carrier. It's not a land we need to own, but now creating a new parcel, the tower will no longer comply with the setback requirement under the UDO. Since it's currently owned by the city as a municipal governmental agency, the city council can grant a deficiency report and approve the tower to be legal without having to comply with the setbacks. If the council didn't choose to do that, we could seek a variance as well, but this is an option since we're the current owners, and the quickest way for us to deal with, again, today it complies, but once we create a legal lot to sell it, it won't no longer comply with the setback from the road. So with that, staff's available for any questions, and Chris as well.
Yeah, sorry, Tony. If the council recalls, about a month or two ago, I came before you for the land transfer. We were getting ready to close on this transaction, and this clarification of the zoning item is really the only remaining item before we close out on the transaction. So appreciate your support in this.
Any questions, comments by council? Motion by anyone? Motion by Todd,
Second.
second by Selena. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Very good, thank you. All right, item 17, any unfinished or new business? Very good. Item 18, would open it up for community comments. Is there anyone who wishes to make any comments? Bless you.
Bless you.
Seeing none, we'll close the community comment. Is there a motion for adjourning?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion by Sleet, second by Todd. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oh, yes.